I've been interested in fetal alcohol science for more than a quarter of a century. My actual specialty in statistics is morphometrics, the statistics of biological shape. And in the early 1990s, a variety of people, most importantly Ed Riley, were starting to use medical images of brains as one of the data resources for the science of this field. We saw some of Riley's papers, which were really pretty good, and thought that we could probably do the statistics better if we used some improvements to 3D medical imaging statistics that came from other fields. We did studies of the actual behaviors and real-life outcomes of several hundred people with diagnosed fetal alcohol spectrum disorders themselves. As the brain papers were just starting to be published, it occurred to several of us that it ought to be possible to apply this in a radically useful way in the legal system, that the statistics were so strong, we ought to be able to use it to get hints at diagnosis of people who had come to the attention of the legal system for other reasons entirely. I've met FASD cases for whom some advocate was passionate. That also includes some of my defendants. Among the defendants that I've diagnosed or helped diagnose with an FASD have been several people who said thank you. One person who said, I've always wondered what was wrong with me. And a couple of people who said more or less, thank you for saving my life. These were people under threat of a death sentence. I will do what I can to make it worth your time. All of which is surprisingly different from the usual thank yous you get from a statistical consulting assignment. I've enjoyed this work more than I would ever imagined enjoying anything in applications of mathematical statistics, which is my basic training is as a mathematician. This is incredibly more complicated, incredibly more messy as data, and incredibly more satisfying. Down in California, the defendant was 57 years old, accused of attempted murder for a really stupid crime, shooting a friend through a closed bathroom door because the friend was using too much hot water. And this man was lucky enough to have a much older sister who remembered that when he had been carried by his mother, she was drinking a great deal. And again, in this case, the jury realized that this argument, the corresponding brain damage, made it possible to tell the difference between this case and other cases of impulsive assault with a deadly weapon. And they reduced the level of the charges, I think, to some version of assault. He was the guy who came up to me afterwards, this 57-year-old man, and said, I always wondered what was wrong with me, after he listened to all of the testimony and presumably understood it. The other two cases come as a matched pair. The finding of the brain damage permitted a motivated prosecutor, a gracious prosecutor, to be willing to go to a judge and say, I believe that an alternative sentence would be better in this case than a three strikes case. And in one case, the Los Angeles case, the person was remanded to a residential setting in which his disability would be understood. And in the other case, a case of internet sexual predation on police officers masquerading as 14-year-olds. The remand was to home care without the internet and with an ankle bracelet for the rest of his life for someone who otherwise would have been sent to prison and treated utterly miserably for the rest of his life there. I'm moved to the extent that these mathematical observations can make a real difference for actual lives.